start that. And I'm going to share my screen. All right. Let's get, you can see my Jupyter notebook, right?
That is correct.
All right, cool. So as far as recordings go, going forward, they are going to be at this link, TS resources. And if you get a chance to write that down. And if you go to it, you can click on it. And these are, this first tab, this screencast, these are the videos that Peter has made, intro to GitHub, intro to Git, checking out a solution branch. And then the study groups, these are the 4 ones that I've recorded so far. I'll put the Matplotlib one, probably right here. Looks like a good spot for it. Probably put it right there. Yeah, today we're going to be going over Matplotlib. And I'd like to start with some objectives. And I finally figured out how to put a spell check on my markdown. So like if I spell what like that, it makes it nice and makes it red for you. So I feel a lot more confident in my spelling now.
Congratulations. No, I installed one myself, but I just don't know how to activate it yet. So
okay. Yeah, I know you use Jupyter Lab, so it might be slightly different, but we have these Jupyter Notebook, these NB extensions, and then there's a spell checker. I imagine it's somewhat similar with the Jupyter Lab.
Probably, most likely. So.
Yeah. There it is. Lost my. Okay. So we'll go back to the objectives. And then we are going to understand how subplots work. In Matplotlib. And then we're going to understand how subplot to grid works. And then just going into this, John, what's your, are you confident with figures and axes?
I can do the subplots fairly well. The figure I'm still shaky on, but I understand what it's doing, and it's the overarching one. And then the axes, yeah, I would just, yeah, I appreciate examples, so that's fine. Okay. Love it.
Awesome. First thing I want to show is, this is from the documentation. And there's the anatomy of a figure, and these are all the names for everything. So you have your line, your markers for scatter plots, your axes, your figure, your y-axis label, your major tick labels, etc. Your legend. On a figure, it's the whole figure. It keeps track of the child axes. So if you have multiple subplots, there's going to be one figure and two axes. A axis is what you think of as the actual plot. So if you want to plot, make a bar plot and a line plot on separately, you make 2 different axes and you put it on the same figure. So if you had you want to make 2 rows by 2 columns, you would have 1 figure and 4 axes. So I think going through examples is the best way to go through this. So I'm going to start with importing Matplotlib. Yes, PLT. So not a good start. Matplotlib. So to start, I want to make a single plot that is 12 inches wide and 8 inches high. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a figure element. And this is where I specify the dimensions. Big size equals 12 by 8. Hi, Eli. And then the axes is, I only want a single graph here. So I'm going to specify 1, 1, 1. And what that says, that first number is the number of rows. The second number is the number of columns. So 1 row, 1 column. And this one is the graph that I'm making. So if I was making 2 graphs, if I want to make the first graph, it would be this 1. If I want to make the second graph, I'd put a 2 there. And then, so now I have a figure and an axis. So the figure is 12 by 8, axis, a single axis inside of there. And I can, if I want to make a line graph, I can put some data in there. And voila, for first graph. Any questions so far?
All good here.
All good here. It's kind of interesting. I put 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I get 0, 1, 2, 3. The default parameters here is for just a y. So it 0 indexes the y on the x. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. That makes sense?
Yeah. It's just, conceptually making sure.
And then, so now I'm going to let's do our first subplot. So again, I'm going to make a figure that is 12 inches by 8 inches. And this time I'm going to make two axes. So I'm going to name this first one axis 1. And I'm going to do 2 rows and a single column this time. And this is axis 1. And axis 2. So the second plot. We can add some text there just to differentiate them. 0.3. So my x will put it at 0.3. My y will be at 0.5. And so this is your axis 1, axis 2 is down here. And this is just a method for adding text to a plot. You specify your x, you specify your y, then whatever text you want. Making sense so far?
Yep, all good.
All right. And then we can we'll just go the other way. Let's say we want 2 columns and 1 row. So make it 12 by 8 again. And 1 row this time, 2 columns. And plot 1. And plot 2. Oh, subplot. And just to add some text again. Hi, Dave.
Hey guys.
How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Not bad. We're just got started going over figures and axes.
Cool.
So I'm making a figure that is 12 inches long by 8 inches tall. There are 2 axes in this figure. It is 1 row by 2 columns. So axis 1 says I'm the number 1 axis. Axis 2 says first axis is the worst axis. So they got a little rivalry there, but they're playing together in the figure. And then just kind of going right along, let's do a 2x2 subplot now. We're gonna make it 12 by 8 again. Got my first subplot there. Not go in order here. If I do 4, where's this one gonna show up at? Could be at this location, this location, this location. Any ideas?
Bottom, so far right.
Yeah. Very nicely done. By 2. And then that one's right here. By 3. So there's my 4 subplots. Making sense so far on subplots? Good deal. Next, I want to show you some different, let's say we wanted to plot multiple lines on the same axes. How could we do that? And first, I'm gonna make some data. And import NumPy first. So this is just 0 to 50 in 0.2 increments. I'm just going to plot that a couple times. And I'm going to make a 12 by 8 inch figure again. Size equals 12 by 8. And it's just going to be a 1 by 1 by 1 figure. I'm going to put a label on there because I'm going to add a legend to this one.
You forgot the equal after.
Awesome, thank you. So I got a red dashed line. There's several different line styles, but I did this one, but there's some different line styles that you can kind of play around with. It's kind of nice to be able to kind of differentiate your lines a little bit. I'm going to do another line on this same axis. This time I'm going to do t squared, so it looks a little different. And I want to make it green. And I would like to use, let's do this one, the smaller dots. And then I'm going to do one more. And t cubed. Let's do blue and make a solid line. And so I got the 3 lines on our plot. There's no legend now. And you can add that. And it's going to look for these labels, and it will grab these colors and make that to the legend. Cool, cool. So now I'm going to make a scatter plot, and I'm going to use color and size in my and control this color and the size of the scatter plots. First, I'm going to make some more data. In creating a data frame, you can make it as a dictionary. You can take a dictionary as an argument. So I'm going to create some data. Random. Get 50 points from a normal distribution. And one more column. Let's see how that looks. For my random int stuff, yeah, a starting point and an ending point. There we go. So I got some nice fake data. Now let's make a scatter plot with the A and the B. I'm going to use C to be the color and D to be the size of the plots of the scatter points. And I'm going to make it a 12 by 8 inch figure again. Just a single subplot. And A is going to be my x-axis. B is going to be my y-axis. Color is going to be the c-axis, or C column, sorry. And size is going to be the my data frame's name is data, not df. Let's see how that looks. Does not look great. So I need the size of the data points is too small, so I need to scale that up. So I'm going to multiply it by 100, see if that looks better. Yeah, that looks better. And when you're doing using a color to scale your features, it's nice to have a color bar on there. And to add a color bar, it's not bad. And specify which axes I want. And now I have a color bar for that scatter plot. That makes sense, what I did?
So when you plotted that, what does S stand for? So C is color, and then S.
S is the size of the plots. So it looks at this D column and multiplies it by 100 and then makes the size corresponding to that. It's just a way to show a typical scatter plot. You can just show 2 dimensions, just your X and your Y, but you can show multiple columns if you include color and size. You have to be careful with it because when you're making a scatter plot, if you show more and more columns, it's kind of difficult to read sometimes. So sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's just noise to your eyes. It's hard to kind of get what the signal is in there.
So then with that, so with the application those would be the magnitude of whatever the data would be, correct?
Of this column D, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd recommend just doing either color or size, not both of them, just because it's kind of hard to follow. I just kind of wanted to show how to do both of them. All right. Now we're going to plot some categorical data. And then make some categories. Group 1. Group 2. Log scale it. And then make a 12 by 8-inch figure again. I'm going to make, I'm going to do 1 row and 3 columns on this time. I'm going to plot this 3 different ways. And first way I'm going to do it is a bar plot. So group 1, group 2, group 3. My second subplot.
The axis dot scatter.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was wondering, I was like, oh, my point's so small, I can't even see them. But yeah, there they are. And then my third axis. 1, 3, 3. And let's not do a scatter again. Let's do a line plot. That makes sense? Which of these plots do you think makes the most sense to use, a bar plot, a scatter, or a line plot?
Dave, after you.
Very nice of you, John.
I mean, none of the above, really. Oh, there's not really a clear relationship being demonstrated.
What if you're just wanting to see what the difference between group 1, group 2, and group 3 are? Would you want to do a bar plot? Would you want to do a scatter? Would you want to do a line plot?
I guess the scatter plot.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm just not sure what the bar plot's really demonstrating. I mean, you can clearly see 1 and 2 look like they have a linear relationship, and then 3 would be like an outlier on the scatter.
Okay. So remember, these are categorical, not continuous.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, kind of looks weird with the categories. Yeah, so a scatter plot's, this isn't like a set rule or anything, but it's usually used to show a relationship between two continuous variables, kind of like you were saying. A line plot, typically used if you have show some sort of relationship over time. So if this was year 1, this was year 3, you see that sales went way up in year 3. Year 3 was a pretty good year for you. And bar plots are typically for categories. So like you can see that group 3 is, they do 10 times as much sales as group 1 and 100 times as much sales as group 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was still thinking about numerical data.
Yeah. Well, nicely done. All right. Yeah, I got a image now. So we went over some subplots. Let's say we wanted to make this now. And obviously axis 1 is significantly larger than axes 2 and 3. So you can think of it as breaking apart this graph, this axis 1, and just like this, and you'll turn it into a 3x2 grid, 3 rows, 2 columns. And there is a option of doing that in Matplotlib called grid size. And we want the grid size to be 3x2. And we're going to make this entire figure to be 12 by 8 inches again. 12 by 8. This is a little bit different. Instead of using just straight subplot, I'm going to do subplot to grids, so I can still reference this variable here. And the first argument is that grid size, and we want to make it 3x2. And this time, this is where I want the top left axis box to start. With subplot to grid, it is 0 index, so it's 0, 0. And I want the column span, I want the columns to span 2. And I want the rows to span 2 as well. Good.
Dot figure, right?
Yeah, thank you guys. So there's our first one, our first axis. So let's make our second axis. And specify grid size. And this time I want it to start at 2. And so this is that third row down, but it's 0 index, so 0, 1, 2. I want it to start right here, and row 0. I need to put some parentheses in there. Now we have these two. And 2 by 1 this time, so we want it to be on the second column. So cool. And it's kind of just nice to be able to, if you have like some variables, to make it all in one plot and do different style plots. So like, let's say we'll make the big one to be a scatter plot. .500 samples. And then we'll make some histograms of the, let's say we had X and the Y, and then we can make histograms of the X and the Y. All right, and then one more histogram. I'll copy over my axes. And then, so this, in a Jupyter notebook, that last line is gonna return values. If you don't want that, that's what this is right here. You can put a semicolon on it and it hides it. But this would be kind of an interesting way to represent X and Y, and you could get a histogram of the X and Y as well. Is that cool? All right. I have a Kahoot quiz. Is everyone on a computer?
Yes.
So go to kahoot.it. And then you'll need to put in this game pin. It's 374-5547. Got Sock John. Don't know who that is. We got DC.
Are we going to need a calculator this time or no?
Shouldn't need a calculator. I think the last quiz I made it too easy. And I think, yeah, this time there's going to be some long division.
Okay, okay.
And did you want to play Eli or? All right, yes. All right. 5 questions. Are you ready? So what is a figure? The top level space where the axes stay, or what you think of as a plot? When I say what you think of as a plot, is meaning if you were going to make a bar graph, would you use the figure? Would you use the axes? So it's the top level space where the axes stay. The axes are child elements of that figure. All right. And then kind of the opposite question, what are axes? All right, yeah, so the axes are is what you get by figure. Does that make sense? All right, what would be the axes for the third plot down? So how would you reference this guy right here? See if you remember where the rows and the columns go. In 5 seconds. So it's, if you remember, it's rows. It's, yeah, rows, then columns, and whichever plot you want. So it's that 4 rows, 1 column. All right. So what would be the grid size be on this graph? Remember the last one was a 3x2. So how many of these base graphs could you fit in all of this and all of this? These graphs are the same size. This one and this one and this one and this one are the same size.
I suck at this.
Well, we can work on some extra practice for you, Eli.
I know I need a lot of extra practice.
Nicely done. A 5x2. So yeah, so you could fit 2 of these up here, 2 of these up here. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plots, and then 2 across. So nicely done. Nicely done. So how comfortable are you with Matplotlib? 1, not comfortable at all. 4, extremely comfortable. And Eli, be honest with yourself.
Can't hear you, too much static.
All right. So a little bit comfortable. The correct answer was 1, apparently. All right. Well, we're all winners here. So there's
Yeah.
But thanks for taking the quiz. We got a little bit of time left. I'll leave. I have this customizing visualizations with Matplotlib Lab. I can go over some of the start on that. Before I do, does anyone have any questions? All right. So the objectives of this lab is change style and attributes for plotting objects in Python to allow customization. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think my spell checker would, I thought that was misspelled. My spell checker catches it. I'll have to remember that. Customize plots with titles, labels, and positioning. And first, we're generating some data for us to plot. And first step, import matplotlib. .pyplot as plt and set %matplotlib inline.
Jeff, you got that as plot instead of PLT, just FYI.
Oh, I did that earlier too, thank you.
Yep.
That would have caused some issues. And then create a new figure using the fig function. Awesome. And then this time they're doing an add axes. Add axes. X and Y. Oh, plot.figure. Believe that's right. I thought it was a curved graph though. Maybe it was that one. X and Z. And then this add axes, what it's doing is it's putting an axis in the figure space of 0, 0. It's 1 inch by 1 inch. And it's useful when you're going to put axes on top of each other, so you can use that 0, 0 relationship and put one at, looks like 0.2 and 0.6. And then make a figure object again. And then make 2 axes this time. First one is going to be at 0, 0, and 1, and 1. Second axis. Point 0.2, 0.6, 0.3, and 0.3. So this second axis from the 0, 0 point on the figure goes over 0.2 and up 0.6, and that's where this point right here is, and then it's 0.3 by 0.3. and plot X and Y on both axes. So axis 1, X and Y, axes, another axes, X and Y. And then add X labels, Y labels, and titles. So axes is the big axis, so that will be large plot. This X label, axes dot Y label. Oh, it's a set title, I believe. Yeah. And then set X label and set Y label. And we're going to do the same for this small axis now. Small plot. Axes 1 dot set X label. All right. Did it make sense what I did there? The two axes. Eli? Okay. Just want to check to make sure. Then we're going to create another figure with two axes again. The first one's going to be at 0, 0, 1, 1. The second one will be at 0.2, 0.5, and be 0.4 by 0.4. And this time we're going to make it 8 by 6 inches. By 6. Zero by 0 by 1 by 1. Then maybe axis 1 this time, and axis 2. Zero 0.2, 0 0.5, 0.4 by 0.4. Got my PLT again. Oh, 0.2 by 0.5. So there we go. And now we will plot, the large plot is X and Z. And then the small plot is X and Y. I said X and Z, but I did not type that.
Your small plot.
Yeah, thank you. Forgot my axes too. For the small plot, set the axes range for the small plot as 15 to 45 and 30 to 80 for the y-axis. So the small plot, that is axis 2. Set X limit. And we want it to be 15 to 45. No, forgot it again. There it is, 15 to 45. axes2 dot set y limit. We want it to be 30 to 80. And then set the line color for the outer and inner as green and red, respectively. Green. And then color equals red. And then we're going to label the axes because we're not animals. And axes 1 dot set x limit or set x label. Axes 1 dot set y label. Getting these all mixed up. Put some space in between them. Large plot. Do the same with the smaller graph now. And then if I want to remove this again, it's that semicolon. Making